Okay, so this is, of course, the Mississippi King, but this time I'm actually not welcoming y'all back to a game or whatever we're doing this time. Instead, I think it was time that I had a bit of a talk. So, as y'all may have noticed, the upload schedule on this channel has been somewhat lacking. Okay, very lacking, actually. I know this has not been an especially productive year, and I think because of that, I owe y'all a bit of an explanation for why it's been that way. So, in order to actually talk about that, though, in order to, explain that, I need to start from the beginning. Okay, not that far back, but still, it does date back to 2018. And as y'all may recall, in that year, I was actually quite productive at producing at least one video almost every week. That ain't too bad. Admittedly, it's not the most productive of any YouTuber ever. Of course, Nintendo Capri Sun manages to, get out a video each day, and I'm often I wonder, how's he able to do that? I don't know, that would break me, man. I don't know that I could handle that. So, of course, this also meant that I got farther along in Ocarina of Time. I started Final Fantasy VI, which, has had some, shall we say, rather irritating technical difficulties, and, well, we're not going to get into that can of worms as a whole. The big thing of that year was that I started the classic Mega Man series, and I managed to finish all 11 games in the span of a year. Not even, the full year, because, this excludes December and January. The reason for that was that I was excited for the upcoming Mega Man 11, and so I thought that it would be appropriate to play through all of the classic series, and leave no stone unturned in that regard. So my playthrough of the original Mega Man marked the start of a huge jump in quality for my content. I was using a better microphone, for one, and two, I actually introduced something that would become a staple for much of my work: info cards. This was the playthrough where they debuted, and honestly, I'm still proud of that decision. Do I think that the playthrough itself still holds up? No, I think it's kind of garbage, but it has some good moments, some moments that I'm quite fond of. And it was the one that got me on track to continuing my growth. Now, my playthrough of Mega Man 2, I don't think it was as good as that one, which is strange to say, but yeah, I don't really think it stands out. The commentary just wasn't as memorable, even though the audio quality was about the same. And the info cards, of course, returned and were a staple for the entirety of the series. And indeed, they still are a staple for my X-series playthroughs. But, if we get to the next major LP, we get to Mega Man 3. This one, I think, was also a jump in quality from the previous high point, the first Mega Man LP, which, granted, I'm still not too fond of, the way it turned out, but there were a lot of jokes that I enjoyed. I also started like trying to improve the look of the game footage. As such, it also marked a huge jump in quality, and the commentary is better than the previous two Mega Man playthroughs. My playthrough of Mega Man 4, I think, has its highlights, but overall, I'm not sure it was as good. And Mega Man 5, well, to be fair, I wasn't really dealing with very good content. It's my least favorite game in the series, and that kind of shines through, but it's also not my least favorite for, like, any noteworthy reasons. It's not, like, bad or anything, it's just there, you know? And it wasn't particularly spectacular. My playthrough of Mega Man 5 wasn't particularly great, but part of that was due to the content. It wasn't really that interesting to talk about, and I feel that kind of shines through. Mega Man 6, on the other hand, I think was generally better as a game, and also as a playthrough. But now we get to Mega Man 7. My playthrough of that game, that was quite a huge jump in quality. The biggest since Mega Man 3. There was so much to talk about, a lot of things that I criticized, a lot of things to make fun of. Of course, the game is riddled with typos, and that made it for a good source of comedy, I find. But also, I'm just generally kind of pleased with how it turned out. Yes, this is actually kind of the first LP that, like, I legitimately have relatively few issues with. Granted, the audio quality, while better than my previous microphone, was still not great, but overall, it was still quite a huge jump in quality. And then after that, immediately after that, we got into Mega Man 8. And wouldn't you know it, that, to this day, actually remains my best work, in my opinion. I think my Mega Man 8 LP was the best that I've ever done. I've got a lot of jokes in it that I'm quite proud of. I like the editing work I had taken in it. It was also a huge leap forward in my editing abilities because I subtitled all of the cutscenes and made lists of jokes about the cutscenes. And overall, that game gave me a lot to work with. Even though it's my second least favorite game in the series, it was at least my second least favorite for interesting reasons. And I also think I did a good job at criticizing it when I found problems with it. I had a great time making fun of the cutscenes and the rather questionable lines and even more questionable voice acting. And the whole joke about Dr. Wowie being an idiot, that wasn't actually originally intended to be a running joke. However, as it happens, the game managed to provide plenty of instances in which that was very much the case, because for some reason, Wowie made a lot of questionable decisions in this game. But yeah, that was a great time. It's still my best work so far, and I still like it very much. So now we move on to Mega Man 9. Not as good, but again, it does still benefit from the increase in quality over the past year of 2018. It still has some good moments. I still am generally pleased with how it came out, but Mega Man 9 just didn't give me as much comedic material to work with, and so as such, it's not as funny, I find, as Mega Man 8. Then we move on to Mega Man 10. the last game I covered before the release of Mega Man 11. I managed to get out the last part the day before Mega Man 11 came out, which is pretty impressive. It was also quite exhausting. I enjoy my LP of Mega Man 10 as well. I think it holds up fairly well, but again, still not as good as Mega Man 8. But that's to be expected. I did say that Mega Man 8 is my favorite so far. And with Mega Man 10, we still had some comedic potential, some good moments. I managed to get in a few more Star Wars references because, of course. However, it was difficult to put out so much material so quickly, and so after that, I needed a bit of a break from Mega Man. Not too long of a break, as by the end of October, I was back into Mega Man 11. Our next LP and the last Mega Man LP of 2018. I think I did a good job there. I do think that there was a lot to talk about. It was a great game. It surpassed my expectations. There was a lot of good things to talk about in it, and I just enjoyed my time with it. The boss fights were incredible, the level design was great and top-notch, and that was a great experience. However, it was also very exhausting. That entire year of 2018 was incredibly taxing. I had to, get out a video at least once a week, and that was not easy. That did take a lot of time and effort, and considering all of the editing I put in, especially with regards to Mega Man 8 and the extra videos that I made, it was difficult to fully keep up with that, and as such, after Mega Man 11 came out, I just felt kind of exhausted. And that has nothing to do with the quality of Mega Man 11. As I have said in my LP of that game, it's my third favorite in the Classic series now. And it's an amazing game. But still, at that point, I just needed a longer break. I was just kind of worn out. But I wasn't entirely done, because then we move on to Sonic Mania, which I think is actually one of my better LPs. I'm actually quite impressed with how it holds up. The audio quality, starting with Mega Man 11, started to sound significantly better, and it sounded clearer and less muddled. So with Sonic Mania, it was a pretty good journey. But then we got to the Mega Man X series, and yeah, I just didn't really feel the same excitement for that because, well, unlike the Classic series, there was no major Mega Man X game announced for that year. And no, I was not particularly excited about Mega Man X Dive. I did still want to talk about the X series, however, due to the similarities between, the X games on the SNES, it just felt kind of tiring, and plus, some of them weren't exactly the most exciting to go through. I just felt that I was often repeating myself a lot, and it just kind of felt draining like before. I just didn't really feel like I had much to say. Even, oddly enough, Mega Man X3, which I did offer up a defense of, and I just didn't really feel like talking about it all that much, and after having put in so much time covering every Mega Man game in the numbered Classic series, I was completely drained at that point. I just needed a break, and I'm sorry that the break has lasted this long, but soon enough, the break will be over, and indeed, we'll move on to Mega Man X4, Mega Man X5, and Mega Man X6 too. I'm no fan of that last one, but we are still going to cover it. I have a few things to say about it, a few choice words, and none too kind. My problem was that I was just playing games that were good for fairly uninteresting reasons, but now the rest of the X series, trust me, is interesting. They're good and bad for interesting reasons, which will give me more to talk about. But it's not all bad news. In fact, I have some good news as to why my upload schedule has been bad. I've been working on a major project, and at this stage, I think it's about time that I unveil that project. Because you see, throughout 2020 and December of 2019, I've been working on a new LP, a massive one. But that announcement will have to wait until next time. Yes, that was my plan all along, to end this video on a cliffhanger, and the video will just suddenly cut off and it will just